Hi, I'm Austin Wintory, and I'm here with the third Composer Points of View, in which I asked 10 composers the same 5 questions to compare their responses and to just generally pick their brains. In the first 2 episodes, which are both linked below, I offered up more elaborate intros and bios of each, so I'm just going to get straight into it. For this one, the question had sort of 2 versions. The first version was, have you ever been complimented for work of yours that you kind of secretly were not proud of or even ashamed of? And the other aspect is, have you ever been compared favorably while being praised to a composer or an artist or a band or somebody who you actually don't really gel with or identify? And the responses were very interesting and quite funny, actually. So enjoy.
You know, I tend to try to make peace with everything that I, put into the game or release. I'm like, okay, I'm happy with this. It is, go with God, be well out in the wilderness by yourself. I release you, so I try to have an attitude about that stuff of like, I'm proud of the stuff that at the time I was happy with it, and that's good enough for me, if that makes sense. So I try to have an attitude of that I am proud of the stuff that I release, and I try not to release anything I'm not proud of, basically. So for the first part, no, not really. I haven't necessarily received compliments on stuff that I don't like, because I in order to have released it, I have to like it. That's the bar for me. So, but for the second part, yeah, for sure. Like, people have compared my stuff to all sorts of things that either I had never heard of, wasn't familiar with, or stuff that I didn't personally like very much, or stuff that was just that, like, a lot of the comparisons in particular for Bastion is just like anything that was just sort of like bluesy and had a guitar, like an acoustic guitar in it, like anything that was like even remotely like that. They're like, oh, it's just like this thing. And I that's totally fine. Like, it doesn't bother me. Everybody has their own touchstones for what they feel a particular thing is like, and especially for something that combines a lot of influences from different places and like kind of does a genre mashup. People are gonna have their own way they come at something like that, whatever that is. So I'm not upset by any of that either. Like, even if they compared me to a band I really don't like or something, it doesn't bother me because they like that band and they like this, so it's cool with me.
It's always like people drawing lines between things of like, oh, this sounds like this, it sounds like this, and then they're always named like whatever the most famous thing that kind of sounds like that is, and that kind of gets into the weeds a little bit, where you're like, well, I was actually inspired by this, but I'm glad that you think it sounds like this. It's kind of tough to bridge those gaps sometimes, because people will compliment in whatever way that they kind of like are informed to talk about music.
I have had times where the biggest lauded cue was something that I didn't write. Like, wait, actually, this is actually a good one. I mean, it may or may not answer your question. So there's this one
piece wrong answers.
It was like track or something, and it was an instrumental track, okay, that was licensed in a show, and it was in Kung Fu, and it was like, and I was like, why are you guys gonna license an instrumental? Like, what does that mean? Like, I always get really nervous. It's like, what does that mean? Like, I get when you license a song, but like, what does that mean? And so anyway, so then that episode aired or whatever, and it was it was like when they kiss, the first time when they kiss. And maybe second time. No, it's when they get together. It wasn't the first time they kissed, but it's like, oh, yep, now we're together, and they licensed this thing. And so my sister, my mom, everyone, like my friends were like, oh my gosh, we love this. Even the fight choreographer, which we message each other because we always are complimenting each other, like, oh my gosh, this scene was amazing. He's like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. I mean, it's actually really awesome. It's an awesome. A whole production all around. He's like, I love it when they kiss, and I was like, so yeah, I mean, not quite the thing you're talking about. It's even more disheartening than that.
All of the above. Yes, I learned relatively quickly to detach my sense of self-worth, or to make an effort to detach my sense of self-worth from what people are telling me, from what fans are saying, from what other people are saying. The overlapping Venn diagram of the cues that mean the most to me and the things that resonate with fans and the projects that get seen the most, that had the budget enough to realize my vision, all that stuff almost never lines up. And I have learned that, look, I never look a gift horse in the mouth. I'm always grateful for a compliment. If 3M3 from episode 12 is the cue that changed your life, that is meaningful to me. But you may notice on social media, sometimes people go like, oh, I love that cue. And if you notice, I write back with an extra enthusiasm. Wow, thank you. And even a sense of surprise. Then you know it's one of those things that means a lot to me, that for whatever reason went under the radar, went unnoticed. And there's another category to this, Austin. There's the cue that fans love, you did a legitimately amazing job on, but is one you just got that extra round of notes on, and it just in your mind became V5 and V4 was better, and in your brain you just can't let it go. I have learned to let it go, but it is funny when sometimes you get you get to those later revisions and you start to detach from a filmmaker's vision and you start thinking, well, it'll be better this way, but I got to do it this way. And then when a fan says, oh my God, it was amazing, you're like, don't say it was amazing.
Vindicating the producers.
Yeah, how dare you validate the producers by saying how great my music is. But at the end of the day, obviously we composers are the ones who get to take all the credit. So I always take the compliment. And then sometimes when people are like, that cue's lame, part of me is like, yeah, maybe it is. Like that you have the benefit too sometimes when it wasn't necessarily your favorite cue. But anyway, yeah, it's very healthy to not take anything anyone says about your music positively or negatively. The only thing that matters is if you think it's good.
I know I could have done better if I'd had a bit more time, but then if I had more time, I would just have been messing around more.
You're right.
So I just kind of feel just I did my best and I walk away, and I'm not gonna analyze. And also, as you know, this is all out of our control. If the fact that I love having clients in the room with me. Many don't, but I'm a big fan of. That is why my sofa is so big, because basically I designed it so that people can lie out and relax and be there when writing. So when writing, you sometimes there was I don't like the melody going down. Can you put it feels negative. I like it going up. Right that way. So it really is I feel that if there's a compliment, I do take it. The fact it's a gang of us doing it.
God, yeah, all the time. Yeah, I'm never 100% happy with anything I do. I think that ever. I think the trick to being a successful composer is being able to achieve. Not successful composer, but the challenge is being able to do the best job you can in the available amount of time, always.
Yeah.
And having this cut-off point where you actually stop. If you give me 6 months to work on something, I'll take 6 months. If you give me 6 days to work on it, I'll take 6 days. Does that mean that I'll produce something that's better? I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean, there is this point where if you're pressured too much, and there's good pressure and there's bad pressure, and when there's bad pressure, when you are given a totally unreasonable amount of time to work with, and then you're going to, you can't produce anything half decent. But I think I'm not. I get people contacting me and saying, "Oh, I love this, and that means this to me, or that means to me." And I think that's one of the most wonderful experiences, when people feed back on your music. But if it's a client feeding back on music, quite often it'll be the reverse, and I'll say, "Well, I've produced genius here. Why are you not liking it?" No, seriously. For Sama, for example, which it's resonated with a lot of people, and I wrote about 80 themes initially in a very different style, and I was really happy with that music. And then over the course of 18 months, I was sort of cornered into doing different approaches and different styles, and I am not happy with that score. There are certain things I'm not happy with, you're being totally frank and honest, but I get so many people complimenting me on it. And when I finished it and it was dubbed, the music was so low, I thought, no one's going to hear the music on this, but it doesn't matter because the film is incredible, and I love the film and so on. And then people started contacting me and say, "Oh, I love the music." I thought, what? You were listening to it? You could hear it? I think, who am I to judge, because the rest of the world thinks that the film is amazing, and quite rightly so, because it's you don't watch the film for the score, you watch it because it's a remarkable film.
Oh my gosh, I'm thinking of one now, which is just making this is so awful. So
for the record, I'm not asking for any naming or anything. It's not meant in that spirit. Yeah, okay. Yeah. It's not meant to feel.
This is years ago, so I guess it doesn't matter. And they send your reel off for things if people don't know who you are, and blah, blah, blah. And my agent had sent this reel off, and then I'd had the interview, and I'd landed the job, and I was I was on set with the showrunner, and they were wanting to kind of have a creative chat about the music, and we sat down in the office, and he was like, "Oh, I loved your reel, that's what really got you this job, it was so good, and there was this one track on it which just blew my mind. I really feel like the score needs to sound like this track." And I was like, "Oh, which one was it?" And then he said the name, and I was like, "God, I can't think of which track that is," but I didn't say. And then he played the track, and I absolutely had no idea what it was. And I think my agent must have said, I was like, "Oh my God, did my agent send the wrong reel?" But I didn't know what to do at this point. So I was just like, I kind of went along with it, and the score turned out well, and they were happy with.
So
the
they
score,
never knew.
All fine, and I didn't admit it, which is awful. I'm such a shyster. I wanted the job, but I don't know what happened. But that whatever track he played was not mine.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tricky. I mean, what I will say about Old Republic is that I think that given the parameters, it's as good as I could have possibly written it at the time. It's just that, part of me wishes that I could have that time machine thing where if you go back in time, there's now two of you. Part of me wishes I could go back and be like, "Okay, buddy, go to sleep, and then I'll continue." And then, you'll wake up, and then I'll continue, whatever. But it served its purpose, and people like it. And there were some pieces where at the time I was like, I wish my brain were bigger and I could do more with this, but this is all I got. And some of those end up being the ones that people liked the most because they had a sparseness to it. The music I wrote for The Planet Hoth was very isolated and sparse. And part of that was intentional, but part of it was I just didn't have the time to overthink it, I guess. And people really liked it. I think that's probably their favorites of all the stuff I wrote for Old Republic. And at the time I was so worried, I don't know, man, I have this huge orchestra and they're playing so few instruments are playing at a time. Noise floor is a concern because of the way it was mixed and all that. But people dig it. So I'm not one to question, their tastes. That's not really up to me. I would say that I will say this. the most annoying comparisons that I get about my music are of the scores that I do like, or composers that I do like, but I just don't see at all where they're coming from. And they say it so often that it's like drives me nuts. Like, I can't stand the people who say that my Mortal Kombat music sounds like the Avengers, because I'm like, okay, there's definitely Alan Silvestri influence, but the reason why you hear it as an Alan Silvestri thing is because it uses the octatonic mode everywhere. So of course it's going to sound like Predator, and the Avengers one I definitely don't understand. Sometimes I think people just like, they only hear, there's only two kinds of orchestral music, the Avengers and Star Wars, which by the way is the other one. People constantly are like, what? That sounds like Star Wars. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. What do you, if I wanted it to sound like Star Wars, I can definitely make it sound like Star Wars, but this ain't it. But those are, I guess, the most annoying. But, you know, at the same time, I mean, what a thing to be compared to, right? Like, Star Wars, obviously one of the greatest scores ever written for anything. And Avengers, I absolutely love. I love everything that Alan Silvestri writes. So, I mean, for me to have internalized that at least a little bit makes total sense.
There's certain tracks I've done that I'm like, that's great. I really like it. I mean, I'm always like, the most important thing is whether I like something, really.
Sure.
And if people say it's garbage, I'm like, well, you got terrible taste. I think there's a tendency for people to praise things that are very bombastic. There does seem to be a culture of people liking stuff loud and noisy. And I don't always agree with that. And I sometimes think things get praised because of the projects they're associated with. So I think, you know, that's a really big thing. I think it's like, hey, you did something that was on a project I like, so therefore I like the music.
You did the score for Grumpy Cat, which was a Lifetime movie, Christmas movie, soon available in All Good Things, which was about 7 years ago or something like that. But every year, I just get so many texts about it, right? And it's not that it's shit. It's not shit. It's Grumpy Cat's very good. I showed it to my kids last year, and they loved it. But Grumpy Cat was basically a meme, and it was a very grumpy cat. He's now dead.
I remember, yeah.
May she rest in peace. But yes, so anyway, so they go, yes, you did Grumpy Cat. What inspired you for the music for Grumpy Cat? I thought this person was being a total sarcastic twat. So I just turned around and go, what inspired me? Oh, fuck, I was broke, man. Again, saying it sarcastic. Again, never be too honest. So then this person, I think, was like, why is he being so rude? I was like, oh, you're being serious? You really like Grumpy Cat? Oh, God. And then I was like, oh, no, I mean, it was really good and it was fun and yeah, and so on and so on. And then I remember speaking to John Murphy, who composer for 28 Days Later, the most wonderful human being who lives just down the road, but he's from Liverpool, but he's from the UK, but lives over here. And he said his son's favourite film a couple of Christmases ago was Grumpy Cat. John said, he's never once said, I'm a great composer. Anything that I work on is great, you know, and just Sunshine, you know, Suicide Squad, whatever. He said, fucking Grumpy Cat. I was like, oh, well, John, you know, there's no
great.
Talent.